Thanks for joining us in the garden today. We are here with Craig from Grange Co-op, and we are talking about roses. I think it's such a classic flower, such a beautiful flower. Something that I think, though, people can kind of be afraid of just based on the thorns and taking care of them. Are roses something that everyone can have in their garden? Oh yeah, absolutely. Roses are a lot, people associate roses a lot with being hard to grow, and that's true in some cases. There are some older varieties that are maybe more prone to diseases and whatnot, but a lot of the newer hybrid varieties, they've really done a lot of work in the newer varieties and making them more disease resistant, a lot easier to grow, quite a few different types of roses. So one of the things we'll be doing, and important kind of this time of year and as we move into winter and even into really early spring, like February time, is really starting to think about pruning those roses from last year so you have good success in the following year. So what kind of roses do we have here? So if you come to our stores, there's quite a lot of different types of roses, and normally the ones that people think of as a cutting rose, that is what's called a hybrid T. There's also ones that are called grandiflora or floribunda, and I won't bore you with what all those mean, but those are ones that are going to be kind of a standard shrub type you're going to use maybe in an arrangement, or they're going to have clusters of flowers. There's also tree type roses that are usually just one of the hybrid tea varieties that are on that have been pruned up, and then there's other varieties like a shrub rose or a climbing rose, and those are going to be handled a little bit differently when it comes to pruning. What we have here are like the floribunda, grandiflora, hybrid tea varieties that are pretty similar in the way you prune them. So obviously if people are looking to get some roses into their garden, they can come into Grange Co-op and you guys can kind of figure out what's the best option for them based on their needs. Absolutely. We carry a really wide variety of different types, a really huge variety. When we get them in the spring, we get a lot of varieties. So for people who already have roses, how do we take care of this little guy to make sure that by spring he's good to go? Yeah, so what you do with a rose like this, and like I said, this is not for a climbing rose or a shrub rose, this is specifically the types that we're pruning today. You actually want to be pretty dramatic with them. You want to take off a lot, quite a lot of the top. So one of the things that people don't think about a whole lot, but it's really important when you're pruning, is if you can find a bud, which is of course the growth that's going to come off for next year, you want to prune right above that so that it will be, so that a bud is facing outward. So you want to trim right above an outward facing bud so next year's growth doesn't grow toward the middle of the plant, it grows away from the center. You want to be going in and taking out things that are kind of in the center of the plant. You want to really leave maybe 3 or 4 main stalks that the next year's plants are that the next year's canes are gonna grow on. Another thing that's important with roses is that roses are a cane, and it's kind of hard to see probably here, but the center of a rose is very soft wood, and that can get kind of rotted out. So when you cut a rose, you want to do it at a 45-degree angle, so that the moisture kind of runs off of it. You don't really want it sitting on that end and rotting that out. So that's something specific to roses because they are a cane plant. So just making sure there's kind of a little bit of a slant to it? Yes. Okay. Yep. And then like I said, we're pruning to outward facing buds. So we're taking off the old. So we're really going in and we're just giving this bush one makeover, a big makeover right now. And we're taking off quite a lot. See here how this is the bud kind of coming off for the next year, so that next year that will grow off that direction. That makes sense. Yep. And you don't have to leave everything. You can, there's going to be a lot of like these little branches growing kind of from down there. The other thing to think about that I don't have an example of here, but you want to, roses by and large, most roses are grafted, which means that the rootstock is a different type of rose than what the top is. And so you want to make sure and trim off anything that's growing up from below where the graft is. So wherever that, so kind of where the big knob is here, anything growing above that will be the kind of rose you want. Anything that grows below that will be from the rootstock, and it won't be a desirable type of rose. Okay, that makes sense. So really, people want to see their rose bushes looking like this at this point in the season. Yeah, you want to take them back. You don't have to do it quite yet. You can start now. You really want to have that done sometime during the winter time, or earlier, or winter time, or maybe very early spring. So if you feel like there's not much of your plant left, that's probably a
Yes, if there's not much
sign.
of your plant left, you did it well.
Okay, perfect. Well, that's super easy. I mean, obviously don't just go crazy with it, but follow all of your tips, making sure that you're cutting at a kind of a degree and making sure that you have outward growth come spring, and you should be good to go.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know, big thing is to remember to do it. Doing it poorly is better than not doing it at all.
Okay, well that's good to know, because I think that for me, I'd just be afraid I was going to hurt it. So in this case, you really can, it sounds like.
Yep, they're very forgiving. Like I said, I told you kind of the ideal way to do it, but don't be intimidated. Don't think, well, if I don't do it perfect, I shouldn't do it at all. It's better, you want to make sure and get in there and do it.
Okay, thank you, Craig. And of course, if you need any more tips or advice on how to trim your roses, or even roses that you want to plant in spring, head on over to Grange Co-op. They can help you with all your needs. And for more information, you can head to our website, KDRV.com. We'll see you next time in the garden.